Hey, you ready?
Always.
Perfect. All right, everybody. Jason Grandon here with another episode of the LOCKBOX. And you guys are lucky because this one is now going live as well as on podcast. So for all the listeners, thanks. You've made us the #1 real estate podcast show.
I'm live?
Well, not really live. You're live.
But am I alive?
Barely. Barely. Hey, so today we got a great guest, and the reason I brought COURT in is because, one, he's good on TV. He's the second best looking guy on television. And then 2, years ago, we started a deal called InstantRenters.com to help people find rentals.
Yeah.
Remember that?
I do, yeah.
And so
Still going good?
Still going good. Yeah. And so when we talked about it, COURT's in lending, and we'll introduce him here in a second, but COURT's in lending, and today, with everything going on, and again, this show does not touch on politics, but there's some stuff going on right now that needs to be discussed, and we figured it's going to help you if we talk about it. Plus, coming from an expert, we're going to show you some things that maybe you didn't know, and then by the end of this episode, you should own a house.
Well, I think we can tag in with that. No politics, but policies okay.
Yeah, but policies, exactly. Exactly.
That's what this is about.
So, everybody, today, our guest is COURT CROFOOT with ILLUMINATE Mortgage, and ILLUMINATE means shine a light.
Yep, to light up. So ILLUMINATE Home Loans, we are a wholly owned subsidiary of ILLUMINATE Bank. Very proud to be here. We're a very unique structure, and we really believe that we are the disruptors in the vision of what lending and banking is going to look like for the consumer going forward. So we're really excited.
Well,
ILLUMINATE Bank.
For all the people out there that have talked in the past on buying homes and stuff, it's kind of like there's 3 important parts to buying a home. And now the very first important part that goes through the entire transaction is your mortgage lender.
Sure. Well, Jason, my background and where I come from. I think that's why we hit it off. And coming out here 20 years ago, it's the Wild West, and it still is. What do I mean by that? Growing up in rural Kansas in a small town, going with mom and dad to look at a piece of property or something, they had already been to the bank by the time they walked through the door. They never went and looked at something they didn't know that they could buy. Think about that for a second. I mean, you've been out here in the valley doing real estate your whole life. That's very different than how things operate here.
Well, the internet's changed a lot of that, which is kind of maybe, in effect, push stuff back.
Absolutely.
Because now you got people that call, hey, I want to buy this house, I want to go look at it. Hey, you got a job? No.
Yeah, you may remember 2006 and some of the calamity that came from that. Back to policy, stay out of politics. The policies that were put in place to make sure that never happened again are for all of our benefits, mine included, selfishly. And I think we can look back and say it didn't work real good.
Yeah, right.
Letting people buy houses 100+% financed with no documentation showing that they could ever pay the institution back or even make the payment to begin with.
Well, so one of the big things that's been out there in the media, and the reason I want you to discuss this is they use the word affordability. And I say they, the media.
Sure.
They come in, they're like, there's no affordable housing. So now I know for a fact, when you grew up, your first house was a 2-bedroom. Mine was a 2-bedroom and a den. We busted our rear ends to be able to buy this.
Sure.
What is affordable housing?
So here's, and people are talking about the market. Okay, well, the market is outside. That statement in and of itself, you are in essence when you say that the market, okay, that is so opaque.
Right.
And it's large. What's your market?
Absolutely.
That's what we have to get people talking about. We keep using these broad brushes, right? And so before we jumped on here, I took a minute and just pulled up. What I paid for, 20-some years ago, to age myself a little bit, bought my first home in Fountain Hills. And
your first home was Fountain Hills?
It was Fountain Hills.
So was mine.
Little, just right across from the fountain. Got a townhome because it qualified for normal financing as opposed to a condo. There's some special things that
higher
come with
interest
that.
Rates.
Sometimes, yep, it can. It just a few more challenges potentially, but it worked out great as a 2-bed, 2-bath place for $136,000, which sounds super low compared to today's prices.
Correct.
But my income was a lot less too.
Well, and also you were starting out.
Of course.
And so how proud were you of having this house? Maybe you didn't want to be in this area, but how proud were you to say, hey, I own a home?
Well, let's talk about that for a second. Where I wanted to be and where I needed to be were two different things.
Okay.
Sure, every young person has big dreams and big, visions of what their life could or should look like. But the truth of the matter is that we all have to start somewhere. If you're living in an apartment, that apartment complex has debt on it. That payment that you're making to the landlord, it's going to service that debt. So you're paying somebody else's mortgage and just not calling it your own.
Correct.
100%. I don't care where you live. Everybody's got to live somewhere.
Everybody owns a home.
If you don't own your home, you're paying more likely than not somebody else's mortgage.
Right.
Okay, so let's just, address that fact. So that being said, affordability. Affordability means, does the down payment fit to your budget of what you can afford? And does the monthly payment fit into your budget? That's the home that you should be buying, whatever that is.
Right.
So people say, well, there's no affordable homes. Well, let's define affordable. Is that $50,000? Is it $500,000? I would stretch to say if the median here in Arizona is 411 or whatever it is right now, we would call the affordability scale maybe 150 to 300, 350. Would you think?
No, I would agree. And then here's one of the things we get, and we get it every single week. Well, I'd like to buy, but I don't have a down payment. Well, did you talk to a lender yet? Because guess what? You don't necessarily need that down payment, do you, Corey?
You don't necessarily. Well, there's always going to be a down payment, but there's state grants.
Right.
There are programs. There are a lot of our clients are using family that mom and dad have owned homes and have a tremendous amount of equity. They want to help out. We can accept a gift from a family member for that down payment to help that person get started. But, let's just say that we do find a client a $200,000 home. We can get into that and they want to use their own money for $7,000.
That's cheaper than rent, because right now if you rent a place, not apartments, but if you rent a house for $2,000 a month, first month deposit,
Sure.
1 month security deposit, cleaning and pet,
You're bumping up against it.
You're right up against it.
So with a little bit of planning and coordination, maybe saving another month worth of that, now you've got your own money for down payment.
Right.
Look, the truth is that home ownership, in my opinion, it is what makes America what it is.
Yeah.
We get to own our own little fiefdoms. And I think that it's our jobs to preserve that and help consumers weed through the media noise. Unfortunately, sensationalism sells.
It does, and people jump on it. So the fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter what you're doing, you can afford a house. If you're working at Starbucks $15 an hour, you can buy a house. Now, it might not be a big mansion in PV.
Of course.
But you can buy a house. And that's kind of what I think we need to get back to, is being proud of home ownership. The other thing that Court and I discussed real quick too was community. So I know I've talked to several of you on the phone. I don't want to buy a house in that area because it's a bad area. Well, if you buy a house there and Court gets you in there, you start making the changes. Now somebody else sees it and then they buy. You just change that entire community.
Absolutely, and that's how it always starts. But I think when I hear somebody say that because essentially what they're really saying is that I would rather continue to pay somebody else's mortgage and therefore increase somebody else's wealth over the lifetime because I don't want to live in a different area. I'd really like to talk to that individual about just kind of the bigger picture conversation, because what I can tell you for sure is to get where I wanted to be, I had to start somewhere else.
Exactly. And so you think today we're seeing a lot of people that just don't want to do those steps?
Well, it's not my opinion that I would give. I would just use data. Something about me is that we are all highly opinionated individuals. And when it comes to things such as money, which can be very emotional, I try to remove that emotion by using data, because data is what is going to drive an educated decision. And let's just talk about what the expectations from, kids coming out of college last year, or
Right.
in 2021 specifically, or 22, right after the COVID lockdowns were, ending, getting a survey of what is the expectation of a graduating college student in terms of pay coming right out of school. Any idea of what that survey was?
Probably minimum wage.
$179,000.
Okay.
Is what they thought that they would be making as a college grad coming out day one.
What they thought they'd be making.
Correct.
And what did they end up making? Was it less than 60?
Well, and again, data. It's data driven. You can go find this information. It's not hard to find. But that just kind of sets up the story, right? The expectations to your question. Do I feel that people are wanting to just leapfrog to Z without going through the alphabet starting at A? 100%. I think that's really one of the biggest problems we have right now is the lack of truthful conversation of what it takes to create wealth. And home ownership is the number one way in America, in my opinion, to create long-term wealth and financial literacy for the average American.
Now, what would you say, as far as, back to the affordability bit, what would you say to a college student coming to town, going to be here for 4 or 5 years, and we've talked about this before, why would you spend $2,000 a month on rent? Why don't you buy a house that's costing you $2,000 or $3,000 a month, rent out 2 of the rooms, you don't have a mortgage, you have a very little mortgage, you learn home ownership, you learn responsibility during those 4 years, and then you sell it and you might have your loan paid off.
Well, again, that's going to go to planning and some thoughtful and truthfully, no knock to the college students out there. I should have done that.
No, we both should have done that.
I didn't. I should have given, if I knew then what I know now.
Oh yeah, go ahead. So we're inside Court's office here, and he's, the working office trying to help people out to get stuff. The big thing.
Sorry about that.
The big thing is the affordability bit that they keep pushing, and I say they, meaning the media and stuff, and they don't contact necessarily us for opinions. They come up with their own stuff and skew it for, like you said, sensationalism. Sensationalism.
That's it. It is sensational something. And I get it, right? We're all in business. Let's just call it what it is, and
but it's used as scare tactics for a lot of people.
It is.
And so buying a home or even buying a place to live takes some work. You get up in the morning and you plan your day. This is no different than anything else. You get up and you say, okay, today I've got to do A, B, and C to buy a house. And listen, buying a house is a roadmap.
Of course. Well, and again, going back, just thinking it through, right? Somebody on the media network telling you that housing's not affordable, I would challenge you to call that person back and have them help you get a home. My guess is they're not an expert and they don't know.
Oh, and they won't call you back because I have called. So there's a few of the people out here that are doing this, and it's not good. Pushing this narrative is not good for our business. And this is a great business.
It doesn't help.
It doesn't help our business.
What are we all here for? And you had used the word community a little bit. Well, let's just talk about that. I don't think that it's ever a good thing to create a false premise inside of a community.
No.
Are there things that could be better? Do we have room to increase building rates at different price points? Of course, there are all kinds of different policy things to do to help. But scaring people and being disingenuous in a false narrative, that's not helping our community.
But one thing that we talk about policy and stuff, these people don't come up with policy on their own. They come up with policy from you. So as a homeowner, you have a big voice if you own a home.
Huge.
Right? Sit down at city council and stuff.
Sure.
So it's up to you to make those policy changes. Listen, a few years back we had this gal, and I know you know who she was. She bought a house kind of on the west side. She's like, Jason, they're just making this area horrible. And I said, well, why do you say that? Well, they're putting a cigarette shop here, and they're putting, another place here and there, just kind of all stuff that you don't necessarily want in your neighborhood. My question was, I said, did you go to the city council meeting and say you don't want that in your neighborhood? Well, no, because I can't stop it.
Okay, well, I think you're touching on a very big
Yeah, and we
subject.
don't wanna get-
Well, no, not even anything that. I just really want to make the point to anybody watching: we are the people.
No, exactly. Which
I'll
means
leave it at that.
you have to get involved.
Of course.
You know, you don't have to call the cops on your neighbors because weeds are growing. Go over. Hey, I'm Jason.
Sure. I'm your neighbor.
Yeah, weeds are growing. Can
Yeah.
I clean them out for you, or get someone? If you know, people need help.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's amazing, especially in our busy schedules. How many times have you left the trash can out in your HOA and you're like, oh, I didn't even notice it?
I do all the time, but I do have community with my neighbors, and we try to all help each other out. You know, that's we have to take the initiative to be in community, to be in relationship with each other as a community, as neighbors, pulling down the walls.
Do you think, again, I don't want to get off topic too much, but do you think sites like Nextdoor have actually harmed community relations or made it better?
I think that, again, anytime that there is a platform that is designed specifically for criticisms or concerns only,
You're going to get negative.
I mean, it's kind of what would be expected from that, I guess.
So, okay, so back to the affordability bit. So I talk to a lot of young people, and they're like, you need to have a job for 2 years. So if you're 16 years old, get a job, work that job for 2 years, and then when you're 18, does that count as a 2-year job?
It does, you know, and back to the, you know, not every student's going to have the opportunity to do this. We understand that. You know, it's not always that easy for every student to
Right.
be able to get home completely, but there are some that can. And for those that do have those resources available to them, starting young and planning, and parents that are listening, maybe you're the ones with those resources that really, really could change the direction of your child's life, not by giving them something, but by helping them with something in the stewardship and proper. I know at my age now, what I've really learned is planning's critical.
And tomorrow's not guaranteed.
It's not guaranteed, and if slowing down the thought process to plan, you know, again, hindsight's 20/20, and
Right.
we're supposed to get wisdom with age. Well, that's one of the wisdoms that I've learned, is that if I could look back to my younger self and say, do this differently, it would be that. It would be slow down the thought process, plan things out a little bit better,
Right.
and steward a little bit better, because we're all going to most likely live a lot longer than we expect.
No, exactly. And the housing market's going to continue to grow.
It is.
So there's no reason for you to go out there and say, we want values to drop. I think one of the worst things, and I've seen in some of the communities like in California and Chicago, are rent control districts.
Mm-hmm.
I have no issue with an investor who buys a house. They buy a house to rent it out, and if they can demand higher rent, then take it. That's called the free market.
Mm-hmm.
So why not jump in and do this? I mean, it's...
Well, that's the thing, you know, it's one of the few places in, you know, and again, not getting into the political side of it, but it's just something, you know, I'm very passionate about. Regardless of where you stand, what you believe, is that we're unique in our country, that we get to own our own little piece of the pie.
That's right.
I call it a little fiefdom, you know, coming from Britain, you know, owning your own little fiefdom and actually owning that dirt that you're setting on. That's the American dream that we're talking about.
Now, I would venture to say that within a year, if you guys came over and talked to court, let's say you said you're not ready to buy, I would venture to say that court could sit down, draw you a roadmap. You tell them, hey, I work here, I make this, I do this, this, and this. I would venture to say, regardless of your situation, you could have somebody in a house within a year.
Sure, with a plan in place
And somebody who wants to work.
and willingness. Yeah, I'm not going to ever get on here and say that it's easy. Nothing worth having. Again, a little bit of wisdom now, approaching 50. Nothing worth having is easy. Not a relationship with anyone, spirituality, whatever you want to go through. What I've found is that nothing worth having comes easy all the time.
Right.
As things may improve in your life, the truth is that you know, you get to a point that getting a home is pretty easy. But early on, as you're building up, having somebody that's going to walk with you, show you the plan, a student at ASU or one of our colleges with a family member with the right resources that would help with a small down, or maybe they have it.
Right.
But you could do a unit property.
There you go.
That with 5% down, the parents can co-sign for qualification, and you get to use the other 3 units as rental income effective day one if they're rented out.
Now, it might not be the area you want, but you own a place. And this also gives you an opportunity to fix the community.
And I would just challenge someone, well, on that. Do you want to be in student housing? You know? I mean,
Well, true.
you know what I'm saying? Oh, well, but I like this apartment complex. You're not going to be there in 3 years. What are you doing?
No, exactly.
Wake up. You know, this is the
Exactly.
planning and listening, a little bit further foresight to that reality of, hey, this, look, sacrifice for wealth, not everybody's going to be willing to do it. But
Well,
those that do, you're going to reap the rewards.
Well, and we've done podcasts on this before. When you host a barbecue at your house that you own, whatever it is, the steaks taste better.
100%.
So when it's your house, it's your. So if you're out there and you're like, I just want to party and hang out, do it at your house. And then this way you're building some responsibility, because after that first party and someone puts a cigarette out in your carpet, you're gonna be like, this is done.
Done that a time or two. Well, you know, and I think that there's just this misconception, you know, as a banker, as a lender here, I really want to tell our audience today something maybe most important to me that I want to convey and really have you understand. Did a lot of loans last year for a lot of volume. None of that matters. It doesn't. Do you care? No. Because it's irrelevant.
It's irrelevant.
It really is. What does matter? What did I accomplish last year that I really am proud of? I have 3 families that have walked with me for a minimum duration of 7 years. The maximum family's been 11. That all crossed that 7-figure net worth line last year. It hasn't been easy, and it hasn't been a slow or a fast journey. But I've walked with them for one of those families for over a decade, to see them cross that 7-figure net worth barrier, to be able to say, congratulations, you're a millionaire.
No, exactly. And that actually the fastest way to become millionaires
Is real estate.
real estate.
That's where I was going with this. Guess what? None of those 3 individuals have high-paying, high-powerful 6-figure jobs.
Oh, they're not sports athletes?
None of them. None of them make 6 figures. I want you to hear
Think
me
that,
again.
6 figures. So no one's making over $100,000 a year.
Yep, and they're all
millionaires.
millionaires. So how is that possible? They planned, and their future takes precedent over their immediate desire today.
Now, when you say plan, I don't want people getting scared thinking that you have to sit there and plan every day.
No.
This is a simple, it's a life choice.
Sure. So, and I'm going to scare some people here. I'm going to drop some nuggets here. Okay, you really want to know how easy it is? I'm going to give it to you fast. Own your primary residential real estate on a 30-year fixed. Make that payment. Try to make one extra one a year. You're going to take your 30-year to a 22-year. Max out your 401k. It's the only investment that I can give you with a guaranteed rate of return. I did say guaranteed. How's that possible? Because you have a tax rate.
Right.
And that money was reduced by your tax rate. That was a guaranteed return. Okay, so max out your 401k if you have it available. Own a primary piece of real estate that you pay a little extra to. Build up. Try to save 15% and live within that budget. Don't let your expenses that you have taken on in car payments, credit cards, etc., exceed those parameters. And I don't care where you're at in the country or what your media is saying about your affordability. If you make those choices, you'll be the one laughing at everybody in 10 years.
Exactly. Now, for some of the younger ones, and I told my nephew this, just moved out here from Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
He works at Starbucks.
Mm-hmm.
So he's making like $17 an hour or something like that. And he wants to buy a house. He's like, I can't afford it. Well, he can. First of all, he needs to return COURT's phone call.
Yeah.
Right?
Starts
But
there.
He can. So he can buy a house. Now, it's not going to be some extravagant place, but you buy a 2-bedroom, you rent out the other room, 2 years.
2 years.
Don't sell it, rent it out then in 2 years, and then buy another house, right? Gain the money, buy another house. Now you can move in with your girlfriend or wife or whatever at the time. Now you own a house that's a rental. You're living in your primary. 2 more years planning.
Mm-hmm.
You and your wife or fiance, whatever, buy a primary house, rent that house. Now you have 2 rental properties, you own a primary,
And you're done.
and you're a millionaire.
You're done. You're done. But it takes planning, and it takes that desire has to outweigh the desire.
We were just going to talk about this.
Because we work while they sleep, we learn while they party, we save while they spend, so then we can live only like they dream. I have this on my wall, and I have it as a reminder every day that the choices that I make daily are what's going to translate to the success of my future later. It's not going to be a 0.25% on an interest rate that makes or breaks me.
No, exactly.
It's how many times I choose to make a different decision throughout the day.
Now, what do you tell people that come in like, oh, interest rates are so high? First of all, they don't understand it.
No.
But what do you tell them?
Sure. So compared to what is where I like to start.
Right.
Interest rates are high relative to where they were previously. They are extremely low compared to where they were previously before that. So I like to give a quick breadth of education when I get that question. Interest rates are uncontrollable. Okay, so again, if we're going to focus on uncontrollables, we are putting our future and our success in somebody else's hands.
Somebody else's hands, right.
So we deal with what it is today. Okay, the truth of the matter is that we got to 2 and 3% interest rates, not because things were so great. That happens as a jolt to the heartbeat of the economy to keep things moving or to spur economic activity. We don't lower rates because things are just chugging along so great. On the contrary, for the last 2 years, our audience has been seeing in social media or hearing on the news that the opposite's happening. We're actually raising interest rates to slow the economy because things are too good, because of inflation. What's inflation? It's not complicated, friends. It's too many dollars going for goods and services. We have too many dollars chasing the goods. That's it. So the prices go up. To slow that down, they want to make expenses higher, right? So all it is a throttle on and off that the Fed has. They're not magicians. They only have a very small toolbox of things to use, monetary policy being number one. The lever of interest rates is the key component. Truth of the matter is, everybody that's listening here right now, if you really understood it, you don't want interest rates to go down.
No, we were talking about the other day. We're still historically low.
We are, yeah, that's in all things relative. Like I said, we're high compared to where we were at a disaster, but we're low compared. So ideal situation is in that 6 to 7% range.
So, and ideally, for just the regular person out there, I want to pay no more than $2,500 a month. Then it could be 100% interest. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. You just got to reverse engineer into that budget.
Right.
You nailed it on the head. Cool. So that's my budget.
Right.
What does that get me?
Right.
And then from that, how can I accelerate? You know, we talk about this, Jason, again, on the uncontrollables all the time. And working with us and establishing a plan, one of the main things we're going to do and really help you understand is that the day the loan closes is really the day our job starts. Because helping you pay back and reduce the debt that I put you into is good business for me, and it's financially beneficial for you. So Court, give me an example of what do you mean by that? Well, again, following up and helping have life changes happen 90, 60 days, 120 days, 2 years after the closing has occurred. I'm still calling, I'm still talking to you. What's happening? What do we see coming down the line that's going to happen? And most importantly, I'm being the helpful reminder that when I'm reaching out, we're focusing on what the balance of the home is, not what Zillow says it's worth.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Because unless you're selling it, it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is what you can control, and that's what you owe.
That's right.
What if you're not selling it? What's it matter?
Well, and briefly, too. Remember the old days? People would buy a house and they'd live in it forever?
Sure. And I'm one of them. I'm going to be in my home I'm not going anywhere.
We're going to get him to sell it. Watch.
I've moved a lot over the years.
But yeah, I mean, it used to be, you know, it gets me. People calling like, Jason, we want to buy a house. Okay, we've got to get with a lender first. oh, we want to make sure it's a great investment. Buying a house, regardless of where it is a great investment.
Sure. Always. Here's where things go with yahoos like me and you, to be quite frank. Leverage it up. Do this, do that. Well, it's really easy spending other people's dreams and money. The truth of the matter is, for 90% of people, that's not the best idea. Having a very safe, structured real estate plan that is predictable and reliable is what most people need. Working with professionals that's not going to sell you on the concept of getting in more debt so we can make more commissions is what you're not going to get with us.
Hey, and listen, I don't tell you to settle, but sometimes you just need to step back and maybe make a little bit of a change. Hey, you know what? Maybe you can't get an 85254, but guess what? Right across the street is 85032. It might be a little more affordable.
Well, let's be honest with it. If you are younger and you're trying to get equity, not as a baseline for the purpose of buying, but it's always nice to know that there's upside to the purchase you make. Don't count on it, as a part of your decision making. But honestly, I don't know that you just gave a great example. 85254, Scottsdale, the magic zip code, I've heard it the whole time since I moved here, right?
Everyone loves it. But
here's the funny thing. Who has more upside, 85032 or 85254?
Well, you might say 85032.
It does. It has more room to run because of the revitalization opportunities that exist there. So working with people to look at those type of examples of where opportunity could exist. Again, I'm never going to try to convince or sell somebody on the idea of a future hope of appreciation, because again, that's back to uncontrollables. But we can take with some reliable data and make a hypothesis of what's likely to happen. It's never wrong to hope for good things. And the truth of the matter is that a lot of money does get made through appreciation. I just never want to bank a client on it. We're going to work on paying that thing off and controlling that. But the truth of the matter is why I've gotten to where I'm at is because of a lot of appreciation coupled with some very strategic planning. You put them together, but I don't, has it historically happened? Yeah, but I never want to make that the focus. Yeah.
Well, and then other things too. Many of you have a misconception that if you talk to a lender, you're going to get bombarded. COURT, I can tell you, and many other lenders, but COURT specifically, you're available 24/7. You work holidays, you work weekends. It's free. Call them up and just say, hey, listen, I'm thinking about doing this. That's his job. And I can't do my job unless he does his job.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, of course. It has to be a team thing. And for anyone that's maybe apprehensive or this speaks to your heart a little bit, money is a private and emotional thing. We certainly understand that, respect it. I'd like to think that I do so better at that than most others in my position. Your information is critically private to yourself. And so the laws that govern us as an institution preserve that privacy as it would at any other financial institution. So
absolutely, and half the time they don't even tell us half the information.
Well, we can't. Yeah.
So
if it's private,
it's like yes, you can do this, or no, you can't do that. We don't get any personal information.
And that's how it should be, and that's how it goes. But having a good team and not being shy, reaching out, and especially to the dudes out there, my other guys. Hey, sometimes when you don't know, there's a thing of pride that creates a resistance, and then getting into money, talking about money. We as men sometimes and women have a bit of a prideful thing with that, and just want to extend to you, if anybody is watching this that has those feelings, please know that I'm a safe place.
Okay, back to his little comment. If anyone's watching it, we know 1,200 people at least are watching it. COURT.
Yeah,
that's
at least 1,200. I know.
I know. Hey, actually, and too, a shout out to a couple of you. When we started the podcast a couple years ago, we had 2 sales in the first month from it, directly from the podcast. And one of them was right near Neck of the Wood in Kansas.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
I remember you telling me about that.
So,
yeah, very good.
Anyways, so, COURT, how can everyone reach you?
Sure, 602-882-5588. That's the best way. I work Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. don't give me too much credit. Answering your hard to talk to good people's. It's a privilege to call that a job, especially where I come from.
And you've got a solid team here too. You got some good people working here.
I'd like to think so.
So, for those of you that are printing the information about affordability, reach out to us.
Please.
Let's have a conversation. I think the best way to solve issues is to have a conversation.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Again, nothing political, but if it's policy and, information's important.
Right.
Information important. There are things that we can do in certain parts of policy to create avenues for some cheaper homes to be built, but as a whole, to blanket statement that we are unaffordable, you're just simply wrong.
No,
and I do this every day as a banker. So.
Exactly. And Arizona is a great place to live.
In terms of affordability of the major metros, I'm going to we can agree to disagree that we're unaffordable.
Hey, so for those, this is our first episode that we're actually doing live video with the podcast. So let me know what you guys think. Again, really appreciate you watching it. You have made it the #1 real estate podcast, and I've been doing better about doing it more consistently. I went like 3 weeks without doing it. I get emails. Are you still on? Are you still alive?
Well, I've been watching podcasts and listening to them for a while now. So you kind of got to have. It's the thing to have.
It is.
Hopefully more than anything, some good information lands to somebody that needed it.
Well, your
today.
information will be on the bottom. So yes, reach out
it.
to COURT. If you're even considering buying, even if you're waiting a year to buy, call COURT. Let them put a roadmap together. In fact, some of you that are planning that far ahead, sometimes you end up in a better position a year from now than today.
Well, and I think too, and we'll leave with this, Jason. I think there's a lot of our audience that have been burnt so many times that it's hard for them to conceive that somebody in the financial space is going to invest time without being compensated or want something from you.
Right.
There are some of us that just genuinely care. We're all humans, and this is community, and it starts with treating each other as such. So,
and you get to work with a couple tens. Anyways, guys, thanks for checking out the LOCKBOX presented by the Grandon Group, Arizona's #1 brother and sister real estate team. We are serving Prescott, Flagstaff, Sedona, Payson, and of course Maricopa County.
You're rocking, man. Thank you,
and you're
Jason,
over.
for having
COURT,
us. Yeah,
thanks.
We're all 50 states and U.S. territories, so it'd be an honor to talk to anybody that's catching this.
All right. You guys have a good one. We'll see you at the next episode.
Bye.